the first panelist we're going to speak to is Menasche from the USA. Can you tell us about the new Green Alliance for Sex-Based Rights and the struggle within the Green Party? Anne is from the United States, so it's the Green Party of the USA, to defend the Georgia Green Party and holders of gender-critical ideas. So over to you, Anne.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm going to start by talking about what happened in the Georgia Party, and then I'll go into our organizing efforts now to create a Green Alliance for Sex-Based Rights. So I'm going to start actually with a little quote from George Orwell, who said, "In times of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act." And I think it's definitely a time of universal deceit right now, and truth-telling is extremely important. On July 26th, just like a week ago of this year, the National Committee of the Green Party of the United States voted by a vote of 119 yes, 17 no, and 6 abstentions to revoke the accreditation of the Georgia State Green Party. What was Georgia's crimes? Put that in quotes. Passing resolutions in Georgia and the state party, endorsing the Declaration on Women's Sex-Based Rights and the feminist amendments to the Equality Act, sponsored by FIST. Both acts of passing these resolutions were defined as acts of transphobia and hate. First, for a few words about the U.S. Green Party. Not everyone knows about what Green parties are or what the U.S. Green Party is. We are a very small, left-wing, decentralized party, struggling under the difficult conditions in the U.S., where we have a very money-driven, undemocratic, winner-take-all electoral system that has made it very difficult to break through for third parties. The party in recent years has considered itself eco-socialist, though there are a range of views on socialism within the party. And we are all environmentalists, of course, and the originators of the idea of the Green New Deal, which is a far more vigorous version than that advocated by liberal Democrats. We're anti-war. We're advocates for universal health care, which the US lacks completely. Economic justice. We're promoters of grassroots democracy. And we're united by the 4 pillars, which are peace, ecology, social justice, and democracy. And you'll notice that the 10 key values includes feminism and gender equity being undefined. Feminism sounds good too. The Green Party has a detailed platform that includes 4.5 pages, I counted them, on feminism. Excellent, actually, though it does need some updating, but this is a very good statement. We officially support the Nordic model regarding prostitution, though that position has been under threat recently. There's a few sentences on gender identity of recent vintage, including the right to quote unquote self-determine one's gender and sex. And in the last few years, under the mantra of trans women are women, and in a time when the party itself has shrunk, has gotten older, and is desperate to attract youth, trans rights activists have staged a silent coup over the party. They've took over the National Lavender Caucus, which is their base of operation, the Women's Caucus, with men, of course, joining the caucus, and other functioning committees of the National Party. But it wasn't always like that. I remember in the late 1990s, in the early days of the California Green Party, I attended a women's caucus at a Green Party conference that was women only, where we discussed transgenderism, and we all agreed that it was a sexist, homophobic, and otherwise reactionary phenomenon. So I have that clear memory. Things have changed. The battle over Georgia that just ended was a year-long struggle within the party. The Lavender Caucus filed a formal complaint against Georgia seeking disaccreditation for their crimes of transphobia in December of 2020. But this was preceded months earlier by threats and a call for what the Lavender Caucus called justice and reconciliation, which was a demand to the Georgia party on threat of disaccreditation to engage in an Orwellian process of re-education, to be culminated, of course, in recanting of its feminist views. The Georgia leadership refused to engage in such a process, instead proposing a real discussion and debate on the underlying issues. And that, of course, was not something that the Lavender Caucus could tolerate. In May of 2020, Green Party members and supporters who were opposed to expulsion and supported democratic discussion on the underlying issues formed themselves into the Dialogue Not Expulsion Caucus. We circulated a statement and garnered support of 288 members and supporters of the Green Party from around the country. This was successful in slowing down the drive for expulsion, but unfortunately only temporarily. Once the complaint was filed in the Accreditations Committee, every undemocratic trick in the book was used against Georgia in violation of the principles of the party of grassroots democracy. The Georgia Party was denied the ability to properly defend itself, to cross-examine witnesses, and to present evidence in its own defense. And the committee itself had already been stacked with LC supporters. Most National Committee members, it seems, failed to read or review what we produced. And boy, did we produce stuff. They refused to basically engage with us on the merits. The secretary of the Georgia Party was even excluded from the Zoom room when the Lavender Caucus provided its testimony against Georgia. He was shut out of the room. There were constant smears and name calling and guilt by association. People called bigots, fascists, transphobes, transmissic. That's a new word they came up with. It's not in the regular dictionary, it's in the urban, some other dictionary. Supporters of the Proud Boys, any party leader or member of the National Committee were targeted, including lifelong socialists, union leaders, and longtime Greens. And they would be attacked if they raised the least bit of questions or even a mild disagreement with the Lavender Caucus or trans ideology. This, of course, created an atmosphere of fear and intimidation, because who wants to be labeled a fascist? State delegates to the National Committee were silenced by moderators for expressing dissenting views, so they couldn't post anymore to the National Committee list. And they were even excluded and expelled from their National Committee positions through maneuvers that were going on the state level. One woman member of the National Committee who supported Georgia received a threat from a man who had previously threatened her with physical violence, and she was the one who was penalized. But there was also great courage and fortitude shown by defenders of Georgia. Who met weekly in Zoom, on Zoom, what we called our war room, collectively planning our strategy. These included dozens of women and men who came out of the woodwork to contact us from all over the country. One example of such courage was the sole dissenter on the Accreditations Committee, won over during the course of the struggle, and he wrote a scathing minority report, which the Accreditations Committee attempted to suppress, though we were nonetheless able to get it into the hands of the National Committee. Subsequently and quickly, the state party removed him from his National Committee position, I believe before the vote, while he was on vacation, even though he had months left on his term. We gathered an impressive group of present and former Green Party activists from states all over the country, a large majority of whom are gender critical feminist women or pro-feminist men. We produced thoughtful and voluminous defense materials, both written articles and oral testimony defending gender critical positions, most that were posted to the Dialogue Not Expulsion website. And we also collected oral testimony, including Hilla Kerner from Vancouver Rape Relief, Amparo Domingo from the Women's Human Rights Campaign, and two trans-identified females who oppose child transition and who openly admitted that anti-lesbian prejudice is what drove them to transition, quote unquote, in the first place. This is a website, Dialogue Not Expulsion, and www.dialoguenotexpulsion.org, I think it is. Let's blocking it. And you can see tons and tons of written materials, and hopefully it'll be turned into a book, as well as the videos that I discussed. So let me just quickly go over two things. One is, why did this happen? Where do we go from here? Quickly, why this happened is, first, I think we need to be aware that gender identity ideology does not arise from the left itself, but from the neoliberal corporate establishment. And basically the left that we have, which is tiny and weak, is not independent enough from the corporate rulers. Second, we live in a time of deep backlash against the gains of second and even first wave feminism, and that has an impact on the left. Third, any left-wing movement must educate the new generations coming in on our experiences from earlier generations, and particularly on feminism. That's been lost. And finally, there's no left effectively, there can be no left that effectively fights war for housing and healthcare to save the environment without the leadership of self-conscious radical feminist women. So where do we go from here? We are forming a new organization called the Green Alliance for Sex-Based Rights. This is our founding statement, and we are women and men who are Green Party oriented. Our politics are basically green in the best sense of the word. We reject the actions of the National Green Party. We are building a movement, a tendency that is explicitly pro-radical feminist, pro-sex-based rights. We endorse the Women's Sex-Based Rights Declaration, and we'll actually do that officially real soon. Recognize women are oppressed as a sex. No one's born in the wrong body. Support the rights of women to have reproductive rights, abortion and birth control, and the rights of lesbians and gay men. And so all the good feminist positions we take, and we want to create a movement and a tendency that we don't know where it's going to go, but we want to create a left worthy of the name that is pro-feminist, that's under the leadership of feminists. Will it lead to a new party? Will it lead to a reformed Green Party? We don't know, but we do know that we need to, that none of the parties, the Democrats, the Republicans, or the current leadership of the Green Party can represent us. Thank you.